Hey guys, it's TWETV here, and yeah, I just want to bring you guys another video, just breaking everything down, kind of do a recap of what's going on. I know a lot of people are kind of hopping ship with, all the brokers and all of the prop firms doing their thing. I guess that's what we're gonna call it at this point. The OG, the one that's been around, from the beginning, FTMO. It's kind of already well known now, but I don't want anyone to feel discouraged. Yeah, they're changing their rules because of the regulations, but I just want to put a stop to the negativity just because they're changing their rules and a lot of brokers are changing their rules and prop firms are, just switching things up left and right does not mean we need to just abort mission and just hop off this boat. Because at the end of the day, how you got to look at it is this is your business, right? And just because one or two or maybe three or four or whatever bad things happen does not mean you need to just drop everything and, go to the next idea. This idea, this business is only going to work if you put not 100%, but 110%, and then put a little bit extra work when no one's looking. And it's just you and you. The biggest thing with this is obviously you got to trust the process and you're developing a skill at the end of the day, right? And it's kind of like sales or management, problem solving. Once you master that skill, it kind of stays with you for the rest of your life and you learn different ways how to leverage it. So for example, here, I'm going to show you guys kind of an entry model, what we're looking for, and also just to put out there different ways of looking at it. Like, for example, probably one of the most known things, or at least the cliche way of trading smart money concepts, is looking for a chalk, and then you use your fib, which, like I said, there's not necessarily anything wrong with that, but I would say it's probably one of the most well-known ways of trading smart money concepts. They don't really look at it as like a supply and demand. They kind of just look at it as like, all right, we got a change of character, it's pulling back in, into the fib extension, maybe like into a 786 or 618 or whatever the case may be. And they're basically trading it, also maybe incorporating a little bit of Elliott wave just to get that extra little bit of confluence, but you never really know exactly how it's going to play out. It may work, yes, 50% of the time it may not work, and you never want to be put in a situation where you get liquidated like this, right? It may seem like it's going your way, maybe for a quick scalp. Yeah, maybe you get yourself a 1-to-1, 1-to-3, and it may work out. But if you're trying to look for, a swing trade, or maybe not even a swing trade, maybe you're trading on the lower time frame, like a 1-minute time frame, and you're trying to maybe trade to a 15-minute zone, maybe that's your end goal. If you trade like that, it's not gonna 100% at least work out in your favor. I'm not saying at any point that, maybe my strategy is not 100%, because it's not. But at least from my perspective, from my back testing, just incorporating this into your overall day-to-day, algorithm that you develop, right? I feel like it's very beneficial. And it's literally just applying one simple thing: looking for order flow, looking for who's in control, and paying close attentions to transactions, reactions, and obviously the time frames, while you lower the time frame. So in this case, right, I have a setup where we're looking for selling opportunities, right? So the market pulls into a 15-minute POI, a higher time frame POI, which you can also look at it as just a 15-minute supply, right? It taps into that. We want to see that. But just having the market, pull into a supposed POI that you marked out doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work out automatically. Some people just take a trade immediately after it. It's not going to work out like that all the time. So what you do is that you go through a testing phase. You're trying to collect data to prove that this works. This is most likely going to go in this direction, and the easiest way to do that is to determine, in this case, we're looking for selling opportunities, right? So we're trying to look for proof that the supply is in control. So how do I do that? Is I try to find a demand, right? So as it taps into this 15-minute, right, we have a demand that kind of forms in the bottom here, right? It has that reaction that we're looking for, right? That little circled piece right there, that's a reaction, right? And you want to look for a reaction. You don't want to see the market just blow through it. If it just blows through it, then that tells me that there's not really a demand there, or a supply. Let's say if, it just blows through it, it just tells me that it's not really there, right? And you want to identify that the opposite of your, what you're trying to do. Like if it's a selling opportunity here, you're trying to look for a demand, right? You want to see it react to it, then come back into a lower time frame supply. So in this case, a 1 minute supply, get a reaction off of it, and then it could blow through that demand. So you're looking for what right now? What we just identified was a reaction and a transaction. That's ultimately what we're doing. I mean, in this case, right, it has a demand, reacts to it, but previously it tapped into a higher time frame supply, right? And then it reacts to a lower time frame supply. And from that lower time frame supply, it then blows through that demand. So right there, that's enough data for me to look at. Is like, okay, it then sweep the low here. And it starting to create that order flow that we are dying for, what we're looking for. So now that I have all that data, then that's when I could go ahead and, let's say, start looking for a trade, So ideally, I would look for, the next supply, in line, what I can see, right? So obviously it's sweeping the lows. I mean, the more aggressive that it is, like if it breaks not one, but maybe 2 or 3 lows, that just makes it better, to be honest with you. That just should give you extra confirmation, but I'm not drawing them so drastic like that because, in the real world, you're not going to get a perfect setup like that. I'm not going to show you a perfect setup, but that's when I would take like that 1 minute entry, right? I mean, the stop loss, this is just me being crazy, but you're not going to find a stop loss like that. But this just, for kicks and giggles. In reality, you would probably give yourself that bit of a stop loss, maybe a little bit more depending on your broker or whatnot, but so the biggest thing with that is now you're taking a trade off of that 1 minute supply that was created from that order flow. And now what you should ultimately do is aim for like a 15-minute demand. So I know I draw another setup, it's the opposite of, what we previously just discussed, but ultimately, that's what you're looking for. You're looking to take a trade off of 1 minute, kind of based off of that 15-minute supply to a 15-minute demand. That's ultimately what you're doing. When you're taking your trades, always look at it as you're going to quickly identify what's going to be your entry and where's going to be your exit. Try to have an exit strategy. So in my thought process, right, kind of like what I just said was, I'm trading, from a 1 minute entry, like a lower time frame order block. However, my main goal is I'm trading from 15-minute to 15-minute. That's literally what I'm looking for. That's my bread and butter, right? So now we're kind of looking for buying opportunities in this situation because ultimately you can look at it as if you can get it to a point where you're trading from 15-minute to 15-minute and you're looking, you're literally developing a entry model, kind of like, these two entry models here, right? You're looking for a reaction, transaction, and entry. That's what we're looking for. And I'm being very patient, right? And letting everything play out, work out how I want it. You're not going to get 100% set up all the time, And I say, once you get it to a point where you develop an entry model that it comes not every blue moon, but it comes relatively, maybe out of every 3 setups that you think are close enough, and then like, oh, this everything lined up like the stars aligned. Okay, then that's where you're getting it to a point where, okay, my entry model is enough that it will line up here and there, maybe 3 to 5 times in a week, but I don't have to wait to trade once a week, because at the same time, you also don't want your entry model to show up like 20 times in a week. There's some people that trade that much. You don't want that, because that's just telling you that it's not really that special. It's just gonna form, and that just tells me that your success rate most likely is gonna be lower, right? I'm not saying to make your entry model damn near impossible, because then you're gonna take like no trades, But let's just kind of go over NAS 100 here, right? This is a perfect entry model. So I'm looking on the 15-minute, right? Now, when marking out my 15-minute POI here, what exactly am I looking for? Same thing, looking for a reaction and a transaction. This is only a 15-minute demand. This means nothing until, the market pulls into it, Once the market pulls into it, then we can start looking for a possible setup. I'm not just taking a trade immediately, so let's go ahead and hop into the lower time frame. Give us a second. So now what we have is a clear reaction and transaction. You're probably looking at this as, wait, where is it? If you can't see it, pause it before I mark out everything. But anyway, so this is a supply, right? It's reacting to it, right? We had that beautiful reaction, right? Let me just adjust that, because that's gonna annoy me. Oh, whoops. There we go. Yeah, trading view. I probably just messed up my settings. There we go. But yeah, anyways. So we had that supply, right? It reacted to it. This whole section here is a reaction, right? It struggled to break through it. We want to see that. Then what happened? It swept to the upside. Look at that wick. That wick should tell you enough that it swept liquidity. That's what it did. That's exactly what it did, right? It's sweeping all that liquidity that's resting on the above there, and now we have that transaction, that demand, right? It depends how far narrow you want it, because some people look at it like, oh, Fabi, you can narrow that down, to that wick and that candle and whatnot, so it doesn't, tap into everything else. Yeah, you can, but the more narrow you put it, it's gonna want you're just mentally gonna want to, decrease your stop loss, obviously, with the pips and whatnot, and then you're just running the risk of spreads kicking you out. You're already on the 1 minute. So how I look at it is, if you're already on the 1 minute, don't be so greedy. Don't do that, because in reality, you're not gonna have your stop loss that tiny. You're just not. I'm sorry, it's not gonna happen. So then with that right there, in this case, we're breaking higher time frame structure, right, to the upside and whatnot. So we don't really have a 15-minute, like how I was saying earlier, to go off of, but let's just go off of that quick little setup. That's a pretty decent RR, that's definitely a little quick, probably like a intraday, kind of leaning into scalping a little bit. But, that's another thing too. It also depends on how far out you want to go, and another thing too, if you're in a situation like this, me personally, what I would suggest you to do is, it's kind of rare for you to run into a situation like this where it's literally making history technically in the stock market, but I would just move your stop loss, take partials along the way, you know, secure your money. That's all you're going to be doing. Everyone should be looking at this as it's like a video game. You got to upgrade your character, be better. If anyone needs extra help, or should we have a boot camp and we're actually passing people's challenges, my links are in my bio. Stay profitable.